Okay, so we're going to start with a short little review from last class. I know some of you understood it, and then some of you it was a little difficult. So I just wanted to go over a couple things and let you visually see it one more time before we move on to today's stuff. So you're just listening and kind of paying attention. So recall that we are letting the hexagon represent a whole, right? So we're going to use pattern blocks to represent the equation 3 times 1/6 equals 1/2. So now, if I go to the blocks that are the visual representation, right? This is the whole, right? The hexagon. Now I need 3 1/6s in here to equal half. That is what the equation says. So I'm going to put, sorry, this little thing kind of gives me a hard time sometimes. So I'm going to put 3 of these 1/6s into the hexagon to kind of show you how it equals a half, right? So there we go. Sorry it took so long. So there are 3 1/6s and they're making half of the hexagon. Okay, so that's visually why it is what it is. Okay, so now I have the next one here for you. And there's 2 of them for this one. So how many halves are in 3 1/2, right? So remember that this is our whole. Okay, so now the hexagon's the whole, the trapezoid is half of that. Okay, so I would need 2 of them to fill up the hexagon, right? But the question is that I need 3 1/2 of them, right? 3 1/2 hexagons is what it's saying to do. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to make 3 1/2 hexagons below, and then we're going to count how many of these red shapes that you see. So there's 1 hexagon. And then here's another hexagon, and I'm trying to get to 3 1/2 hexagons, right? So now I'm at 3, and then I have this little half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 trapezoids in a hexagon. And that's just representing how many halves are in 3 1/2. Now, you don't need to use hexagons. You could use squares, which is what I would do. This is just kind of something where you can see it a different way. Now, the next one on here is how many thirds are in 2 2/3. So remember that the hexagon for this example is the whole. Now, the rhombus makes a third. And the reason I'm using thirds is it says 1/3, right? So I need to use thirds. So these rhombuses or diamonds, however you want to look at them, there are 3 of them that are going to make up one whole, right? But we need to get to 2 2/3. So I'm going to kind of keep going here. So I have this one, and then I have this one. And then I need 1 more to fill up that hole. So now I'm at 2, but I need to get to 2 2/3, right? So there's 2 2/3. So now I'm going to count all the shapes, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So there are 8 halves or thirds is in this situation. Okay, so now when we get to this next one, this is going to be a little bit different because it says the trapezoid is the whole. So now we're going to use blocks to represent that. So 3 times 1/3 makes 1. So now my whole is this. Okay, and I need 3 of something to fill up a whole. Well, these triangles fit in here just perfectly. And these triangles are what's going to be 3 of them. Okay, so it says 3 1/3 make a whole. So notice how there's 3 thirds, right? 3 1/3 make a whole trapezoid. So that's that one. And then this is just one that I kind of wanted to go over. So select all equations that can be used to answer the question, how many rhombuses are in a trapezoid? Okay, so here's the hole, the trapezoid, right? And I want to know how many of these guys can fit in it. Well, really it's only this little 2/3, right? It fills in 2/3 of it. So the red is the leftover. Sorry, I messed this up for you. But that red that you see there, that is the leftover shape. That's the other third that's not accounted for, right? So the trapezoid makes up 2/3 of the whole trapezoid. The rhombus does. So when I'm looking at these equations, I need to figure out, well, which equation matches the diagram? Okay, so when I'm looking through them, the answers are going to be B and C, or the second and third, however you want to look at that. So something times 2/3 makes 1. So if you look at this, something is this, right? This red piece that is there for you. So that red piece is the something. So a third times 2/3 makes 1. That's what that's telling you in this equation that you see right here. And then the one below it is, well, 1 divided by 2/3, or this blue, equals this third that's left over. So that is why the answers are the two that you see. So that's just a quick little review on what you learned last class. Today's going to build on it just a little bit. So we'll kind of get going here. So use diagrams to find the number of groups. So we will draw diagrams to think about division with fractions. How many of these in that? That's the topic. And you're on page 33 of your book. So it says, we can think of the division expression 10 divided by 2.5 as the answer to the question. How many 2.5, are in 10? So complete the diagram to answer the question. So what we would do is we would separate these. So I'm going to do 2.5. So this would be 1, 2.5. Do you guys see that? And then now I have half here. So then my next line is going to go right there. So that's 1, 2, and this half. And then I'm going to count again. I got 1, 2, and this half. And then I have 1, 2, and this half, right? So this is a group right here. This is a group. This is a group. And this is a group. So there are 4 groups. So that's what you're going to write for number 1. And you're also going to label the tape diagram. That's what I'll be looking for when I look at your notes. And again, that's on page 33. Okay, so same page, I'm just moving on. So number 2, complete the tape diagram to answer this question. How many groups of 2 are in 7? Okay, so you're going to draw a little line here. That's 2. That's 4. That's 6. And you have 1 left over. So this is a group. This is a group. This is a group. And then you have 1 little left over, half. So the answer would be 3 1/2 groups. So that's what you'll write on number 2. And then we'll kind of get moving on here. So you are on page 34 now in your book. So to make sense of the question, how many 2/3 are in 1? Andre wrote equations and drew a tape diagram. So here's the equations here. That's your multiplication. That's your division. It says in an earlier task, we used pattern blocks to help us solve. This is what I just went over before I started. Explain how the tape diagram helps us solve. So what's going on is this is a third, this is a third, and this is technically a third. But we're only dealing with 2/3, right? So this here, this group here, that is one group of 2/3. So now over here, right, this leftover, that right there is half a group of 1/3. So now when you're looking at this here is one group, right? That's a group. And then this is half a group. So the answer is 1 1/2. Okay, so there's 1 1/2 groups that we just solved. So now we have, write a multiplication equation and a division equation for each of the following questions. Draw a tape diagram to find the solution. So how many 3/4 are in 1? Okay, so what's going on here is this is 1/4. This is 1/4. This is 1/4. And that makes up 3/4. So this here is the one group of 3/4. Okay, so that is what you'll write on A. And that is going to be what you'll draw. So you'll draw the purple, and you'll also, anything I'm writing in red, you should be writing down. Now, what's left over of this, right, is 1/3. So notice how this 3/4 right here, this is broken up into thirds, because 3/4 is a third of the total, right? The total. So if I'm dealing with just one little box here, that is 1/3 of the group. Okay, so this little leftover guy, he's 1/3 of 3/4. Okay, so that's visually what would happen. Now, what I really care about that you understand is these right here, right? The equations, because that's where we're going with all of this starting next class. So your equation that you need to write down is what you see in blue. So the question mark times 3/4 makes 1, right? And I took that right from here. I just made an equation out of the sentence. And then remember, I told some of you last class that in your multiplication equation, whatever the whole is or the answer, that's going to automatically set up your next equation. So 1 divided by 3/4 makes something, right? And that something is what we'll be solving next class. Okay, and then we have one more here like this. So it says, how many 2/3 are in 3? So now what's happening is each of these little guys, they have a third, right? So every one of these, we're going to give a third. Okay, so this is 2/3, this is 2/3, this is 2/3, and this is 2/3, right? So this here is one group of 2/3. That's kind of what I wrote in the little, I'm sorry, it's one group of 2/3 because there's two of them. Sorry. So this here is 2/3, right? And this is 2/3, and this is 2/3, and this is 2/3. So what's happening is now you have this leftover guy, and he's half of that group there. So this is 1/2 of 2/3. Okay, and then your answer would end up being 4.5, but that's really not important today. But what goes on is now you need to know how to make an equation for this. So how many 2/3 are in 3? Well, something times 2/3 makes that 3. So that's what you'll write. And then remember I said whatever your answer is, that's going to go in with your first part of the equation. So 3 divided by 2/3 makes something, right? And then you should also draw the diagram that I drew right there. Okay, and so this is, I think, the final part of this. So we're just making equations from a sentence. So you're on page 35, and it says finding number of groups. For each question, we are just going to be writing a multiplication and division equation, okay? So how many 3/8 inch thick books make a stack of 6 inches tall? Okay, so something times 3/8, that's from there, is 6, and that's from here. And then remember I said, whatever ends your equation, that starts the division equation. The total divided by the 3/8 makes something. So for A, you should be writing what you see in the blue. And then your final one is right here. We're just writing multiplication and division equations. So how many groups of half pound are in 2 3/4 pounds? So something times half makes 2 3/4. And then this multiplication answer starts your division equation. So 2 3/4 divided by half makes something. Okay, so you're going to join class and we'll start the practice.